My key takeaway is that your brand story likely has more power than you realize, and it may even convert better than your sales play. I'm CJ Emson. This is SEO in 2026 Additional Insights.
CJ, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
My number one tip, David, is to really believe in brand and invest in your brand storytelling. So I'm a content SEO, I would say that. But we heard at SEO Brighton last year in almost every talk that I attended. And we also know with the increase in AI search, the AI really rewards recognized, trusted brands in the summaries. And with AI comes a repositioning in customer trust. So having more of your brand story out there is really going to be key to influencing your audience to buy in the long term and to find you and your product. Every message really about brand building and SEO in 26 for me is going to be about building authenticity, creating memorability, and crucially being discovered. And all of the brand storytelling that you can do can adapt your content more easily to multiple platforms as well, which is another key piece that you need to be wherever your audience are. Increasingly, there are multiple touch points, they have multiple devices, and largely shorter attention spans. So the more memorable that you can be with your brand story, the greater reach you'll have in the long term.
So you talk about multiple touch points, multiple devices. Does this mean that the way that brand SEO is done in 2026 has changed significantly?
I think the key SEO principles are still true. Keyword search, having all of those baseline principles of good SEO hygiene in place, are still true, ever more so with AI. But the way that we're telling stories now across the multiple touch points, multiple devices, multiple mediums as well. So is it video? Is it carousels? What is driving that engagement? And it might work differently on a different platform. Something that performs well on social media like an Instagram or a Facebook is going to perform completely differently on a more corporate social like LinkedIn. There's almost a democratization of search, I think, that's come with the diversification of platforms, where you might put a blog up before, in years gone by, top tips, and put it on your website. Now, how does that translate into your various social media platforms? Are you producing a video? Is there a transcript? And all of that bleeds into that discovery piece that I mentioned before. Can you be discovered wherever your audience are? And to continue that conversation with them on that space.
And if you're being discovered where your audience are and that's not on your website, what does this mean for measuring success?
I think overall we'll have to consider what success looks like in different platforms. So in your engagement rate, which might have been one flat figure before in a reporting spreadsheet for your C-suite, you're going to have to think about multiple ways to disseminate that to them. It's not going to be, we saw the removal of the blue links last year. So it's not going to be that we're first search position on Google. It's going to be that we have a minimum engagement rate on Instagram, or we have a huge reach on LinkedIn. So I think it will come down to having different metrics for success for different platforms.
Okay. And saying the name that some people don't want to say, AI search, what does it mean for AI search results? Does the way that a brand is picked up by an AI search engine mean that the way that brand SEO done is significantly different? Are there certain elements that you want to incorporate for a brand that you're working on behalf to try and ensure that they're being mentioned as often as possible in relation to maybe a particular question or a particular industry segment?
Yeah. I think there's two ways to look at it for AI. So you still need your good base SEO content on pages, FAQs. Specifically for AI, FAQs obviously drive really good summary search, and you're feeding Google results for that as well. But within AI, we're seeing that behaviors are customers or prospects go and do the research on an AI platform, and then they come completely off device. They might do that research on their laptop, and then they're on their phone when they get home, and they're doing that research on different platforms. So from an AI search point of view, you have to be covering more bases. And for brand, I think that looks like, as I said, that FAQ piece on the website, but also how are you translating it? And what is your search strategy for some of these search gardens, if you will, like your social medias, which are behind, behind logins and are not turning up on traditional search platforms. And Reddit maybe bridges the gaps a little bit in being discovered in AI versus having a social strategy, for example, just to be discovered there.
And you talk about how brand SEO can fuel demand. What does this mean in terms of the behavior that you want to encourage? Are you trying to ensure that people actually remember your brand and come back to your site? Are you trying to encourage more searches on traditional search engines to demonstrate that your brand SEO has been a success? Are you trying to get click-throughs maybe from the SERP where your brand's mentioned and there's some kind of link there?
I think with AI, there are going to be different ways to, the same ways we spoke about the success metrics, there are going to be different tactics for each platform, each area that you want to perform in. As Instagram as an example, I'm seeing consistent, almost repeat adverts from multiple different brands. I've set up a consultancy in the tail end of 25. So I'm seeing lots of, new business, how to gain those followers, and how to build your base. But they're all quite identical. So for me, those brand stories are not resonating because a lot of them are saying the same thing and repeating very similar messages with largely generic handles. So for brands across any platform, the example I gave was Instagram, but the idea is to stand out. And if you're doing the same tactics as every other brand and sounding the same, how will you be found in an AI result where you might be up against 5 competitors and you're all doing similar things? How are you communicating your USP and more specifically making it relevant to the audience itself? I recently did an SEO and content audit for an aviation brand, and the content that they had on their site was very self-focused. It was brand focused, their successes, their awards, their reach. But in my initial sort of summary of it, there was no mention of the customer benefit there. So within that brand storytelling, it has to become more more client focused to be able to have the brand resonate with the client or customer.
How does a brand know how to go about standing out? What aspects of their content should be different compared with their competitors? Because if you're in a certain industry, perhaps on occasion there's a certain level of expectation of how a brand's going to act within a particular sector. So you want certain elements to remain the same, I guess, and certain elements to stand out. So which elements should stand out?
I'm thinking about it as a business owner myself. When I'm seeing ads and I'm already bored by them, now that's not an ad that's working, be it organic or paid. Some content that's in my feed that hasn't engaged me and stopped me. I've not taken any brand awareness away from that interaction. So it's more about, from a brand point of view, I think you've obviously, got your brand pillars. You want someone to know your brand name and what you actually do. But are you identifying with the problems that your customers are experiencing? And if you're not, then you begin to sound like everybody else. So telling your brand story in a way that highlights your product or service, but also kind of evidences to the customer that you understand the pain points. I think that's key for me, that those brands are just going to be a bit more memorable.
Yeah, that's certainly something key to think about there as well. I think brands that are a little bit different, maybe in the UK, are brands that embrace social media and are dare to be a little bit different, or perhaps do something or say something that will rock the boat. But you don't necessarily want to do that. But I like your suggestion of perhaps embracing customer problems a little bit more and identifying that perhaps as an industry sector, there are certain challenges that many customers face. And I guess there are many brands that shy away from even that.
Well, absolutely. So how do you stand out in content and brand storytelling now? There's certainly brands that lean into controversy, and there are others that, just have made more of an emphasis on understanding the client pain points and speaking to clients and customers in the spaces that they are. Some of the travel brands, I suppose, do this really well. We've got On the Beach versus like a British Airways. So On the Beach, talking more about the benefits to customers. Here are the things that you can enjoy when you get there: upgrades, check-in, ease, versus, British Airways, who are looking more at the experience itself, this more premium feel. So both of them have successes because they're identifying what the customer they're aiming to engage with wants to hear, and they're in the spaces that those customers want to engage and hear that message.
How do you identify the most suitable platform on which to engage and have these conversations? Or, you mentioned Instagram. Are we just talking about social media here? Do we try and actually have some kind of communication on our own website, maybe in chat form, or are there other better places? And should there be multiple places rather than a single place?
Yeah, I think I mentioned already about the democratization of search. So that's moving away from Google as your homepage and your single source of search to having customers do their own research on multiple platforms. Increasingly, there is a social element being brought into that engagement piece, but it's for each brand, to say where they are. If you're maybe more B2B, and certainly in my previous B2B roles, LinkedIn has been, our social media community, which isn't to say there's not traffic to the site, but often those two audiences are doing different things. They're maybe passively engaging on a social platform, and they're more intentionally coming to your website to explore a specific product, solve a specific problem. But that engagement could have started on a different channel. It could even have started with a competitor, who mentioned your brand or tried to put your brand down, and it could backfire for some of those firms engaging with clients in a different way. And say, oh, I didn't know that brands over there also did this product. And then you've got a comparison piece. So there's multiple platforms and multiple ways that everyone is engaging with now, as you'll know from your own search experiences, as I do. I've mentioned Instagram a lot because I think within each of these kind of gated communities, there are obviously sub-communities of SEOs within there. So Instagram has its own SEO algorithm, and none of that is appearing in a Google search.
And because of the fact that some content does appear within gated communities, do you tend to take some of that content, copy and paste it, or embed it from elsewhere and feature it on your own website? Or do you just accept that the fact that there is going to be content elsewhere that you're not necessarily going to be able to publish or feature on your own site?
I think it goes back to those SEO principles. Whatever you're doing for your site, you're doing for your main search audience. How that translates to other platforms, how that discoverability is impacted by different formats as well. So putting a video together for a long form piece, that might be the driest video that's ever been produced and no one's ever going to look at it. So some things, some things translate well and other things don't. Certainly we saw huge engagement rates with carousels on LinkedIn for B2B content, which I think you can more easily summarize long form content, and then you're able to use those images in multiple different ways. You can embed them in a newsletter, which we've done, for example. So make every asset within a brand story or within a more product-led play. Sweat the assets is still a key message, that all of your brand storytelling, all of your content needs to work hard, and it has to increasingly work harder because it needs to be wherever your audience are, and they're more likely to be in multiple places.
CJ, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
My key takeaway is that your brand story likely has more power than you realize, and it may even convert better than your sales play.
CJ Emson is founder at Corporate Narrative. Find out more over at corporatenarrative.co. CJ, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thanks, David.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at seoin2026.com.